In this lesson, we'll talk about a fundamental aspect for the customer service, and we'll see how to make the contact between your company and the customer more easy and usable. A big part of your customer base will find the information that they need on your website on their own. But there will always be quite a high percentage, around 25%, that prefer to communicate with the customer service directly if they encounter some difficulties or if they have a question or doubt before they make the purchase. There are some people that will send an email without question. Others prefer to interact directly through chat service, or others to whom it's more convenient and immediate to make a phone call. The more ways of contact you can offer, the more credible the company and the capacity to increase conversions. Why do you say that? Because if the only way of contacting your company is a form that the customer can fill out, you will lose the orders of customers that are looking for an immediate answer to complete their buying process. They're about to buy a product and suddenly they have to leave the cart, look for the contact page, fill out the form and wait for someone to respond who knows when. If you are lucky, they'll postpone the purchase, and if not, you've lost them for good. On the other hand, if you only offer contact by phone, you'll lose the customers that don't have time to make a call. A lot of customers prefer to buy online so that they can avoid the face-to-face contact with salespeople and cashiers. They do not want to be obligated to call and talk to a stranger to get information about the size of a shirt or about the shipping details. Therefore, the preferences of the customer with regard to the contact methods depends on different factors. For example, the level of urgency of the request. For example, let's imagine that the customer is inside the buying process. He has filled out all the data and is about to proceed to the payment. In that moment, a question rises up or a technical issue on the site that appears last minute. He needs immediate support in real time, or he will most likely not complete the purchase. It also depends on the difficulty of the request. If the problem is complex or it's a big question, the customer would prefer to talk about it instead of wasting time writing large emails to explain everything in detail. And finally, it can also depend on the time the customer has available at that moment and where he is. Because if he's in a public place or he isn't alone, maybe in a waiting room or in a restaurant, he would prefer to send an email instead of talking on the phone to get more privacy and not to bother the people around him. Therefore, the contact methods that you should provide to get 100% effective service need to be contact by telephone, contact form, online chat. In this lesson, we talk about the first two, while the subject chat, which is quite extensive, we'll discuss in a separate lesson. We will start to talk about contact by telephone. Usability studies have shown that almost all users felt comfortable and safe when the company showed the phone number in the header of the page, like the one we can find here on the Cofidis website. Here, the phone number here is easy to locate. In this way, the company communicates to the customer that they, without a doubt, prefer to receive quotation requests by phone instead of through the web page. Furthermore, the Viking website adds the link to the customer service page in the top part and, on the right side, the phone number to get in contact with the company. Incorporating the phone number in the upper part of the home page has almost become a mandatory detail if you offer activities like a reservation service, if it is for a hospital like Hospital Virginia Mason, where here on the right side shows the telephone number, or if it's an activity in the hotel or restaurant industry, like the page of the Italian restaurant called Buca Mario. On the home page of this restaurant, we will find only a screen-wide picture and the telephone number clearly visible in the upper part. This telephone number is, besides the background image, the logo and the navigation menu, the only content of the page. Also on the web page of the restaurant Onda Blue, In the header, we will find the address, the telephone number, landline and mobile, and the email address. This content is fixed in this position on every page and therefore represents an excellent option because it does not matter where the customer is navigating on the site. For example, if it's through a search form that will take him to another page, the contact information data of the company will always be there, clearly visible. This does not mean that it is the rule to always have the telephone number visible in the header. For example, the website of TNT, the telephone number is inserted in an extendable menu, which opens in the header when you hover over the words customer service with your mouse. In this way, the customer that wants to get in contact with the company will click on this element with the mouse, and when he does so, he will see the telephone number without having to change the page. Conforama inserts a telephone number that allows the customer to make an order by telephone at the bottom part of the page, in the footer, and it can also be sufficient to have all the contact information on one specific contact page. This page needs to be accessible from the main navigation menu in the header, from the customer service homepage that contains all necessary information to offer assistance and help your customers, and finally from the footer of the page on the bottom part. Because, like we saw in one of the earlier lessons, these are the areas where the customers expect to find this kind of information. Let's see, for example, the customer service page of IKEA. On this page, we will find a text and a button that requires the customer to click in order to open the page that contains all the contact information of the company, the telephone numbers, the contact form, and the live chat service. If your shop has multiple offices or departments, it is preferable to show only one unique telephone number for customer assistance, with a recorded voice that requires the customer to choose the option that best fits his needs, using the numbers on his phone. Then, the one that answers has to order the call to the correct offices. Showing too many phone numbers, like we can see on the web page of Altro Consumo, could be counterproductive because it's confusing for the customer. For that reason, the larger companies like IKEA or TNT offer the customer one unique telephone number to contact them, regardless of the type of request or customer need. Later on, in the second step, the customer will be redirected according to his needs. This does not mean that the customer needs to switch from one number or an operator to the other. According to some studies, 26% of the consumers are transferred from one operator to the next without getting a solution to their problem. And when a customer calls customer service to get support, that is the first reason they get frustrated. The best thing you can do when you're not able to give him a quick and thorough answer is to ask for contact information and call him back when you can fulfill his needs, when you know how to help him. If you have the possibility and your company makes a lot of use of phone assistance, I would recommend that you offer a toll-free phone number to your customers. Every day, more and more companies get a toll-free phone number for their customer service, like Amarant, which we can find on this page. A free phone number for support might be one of the most powerful marketing tools to get in direct contact with your customers, to push them into a purchase and to keep them by offering after-sales assistance. It can also be a way to differentiate your web page from the competition by transmitting an image of great quality and professionalism. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to contact the assistance service of Apple by phone. On this page, they ask how you would like to receive assistance, and if you leave your telephone number, a representative of customer services will call you in a couple of minutes. I have used this service several times, and every time I am more and more impressed because it is rapid. I do not have to search for a number, write it in my telephone, listen to a recorded voice, press some numbers while I listen to the available options, etc. And it is free. It is not a coincidence that the customer service of Apple is also one of the strengths of the company. It's a really good idea to add information about waiting times when consults by phone are available, because a telephone that keeps on ringing and nobody is answering is really demotivating for the person that's calling and could hurt the company's reputation. Imagine that a customer is always trying to call at the wrong time during various days, and in the end he'll think, I've been calling so many times but no one answers, and this is what they call customer service. For example, here on the page of Naturgy, we can find information about timetables, for any contact method that the web page offers the customers. For example, here we can read that the customer service number is available from Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and the online customer care through social media is available from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. When customer service is not reachable by phone, it is a good idea to use an answering machine service where the customer is able to record his request to be contacted as soon as possible. And when contacting this customer, you can bring him back to the web page and offer assistance to avoid losing the customer or a potential sale. Other information that you need to provide are the costs of the phone call that the customer needs to pay in order to talk to customer service. For example, on the web page of the company FedEx, we can see that the costs of a phone call are 10 cents a minute, tax included. Once I spent $9 to $10 in making a phone call to a customer service, and I only noticed it a couple of weeks later because the company was not open with regards to these costs. Obviously, I felt deceived, and it left me with a really negative idea about the credibility of that company. So do not make the same mistake. And what if your customers prefer to write an email instead of making a phone call? The main error that most of the web pages make is not to offer the customer the possibility to fill out a contact form and to show them directly the email address of the company on the page. Let's take the web page of Nissan, for example. On this page, we will find the customer support data, including an email address, which contains a link that will open the email program configured on the user's computer. The perception that many users face is that the company wants to prevent customers from contacting them. Maybe they are visiting the site from a computer that's not theirs and therefore does not have their email address configured. As you can see in this case and in the practice to the customer, they do not give him an alternative. In fact, they do not have a way of contacting the company if not by telephone. Or better said, they need to copy the email address of the company, leave the web page, open their email in the navigator, insert the username, password, and spend useless time, paste the email address, etc. Nissan could have had a contact form on their web page that allows the customer to write a request directly on the page and send it in one simple click without having to leave the page and open the email. But how do you structure a useful and effective contact form? First, the contact form needs to be simple and require that the customer fills out only a couple of fields, the ones that are really considered essential. The contact form of the Rusty Surfboards webpage, which is selling surfboards, they ask, for example, to fill out some fields that could be avoided to simplify and speed up the contact between the customer and the company. The form should request the name, email address, and the message. Everything else, like the order number, company number, telephone number of the company, RMA number, which in reality is not really clear what that's about, could be useful information for the company, but it's not a priority. In fact, these are optional fields that the user may leave empty. On the Estee Lauder page, it will only get more complicated. In the first place, they ask to select what is your question about, choosing from a couple of categories specifically defined. In this point, the user could panic. What happens if your question does not fit into one of the categories? It is quite limited for a list of actions, right? If it is really necessary for the customer to tag his own request, would it be at least reasonable to add a category that you could call Other or General that could represent a valid alternative for the user? In the third section, you can insert personal data. They ask you for your name, last name, twice your email address, 2 lines that are called address. Why 2, not just 1? City, postcode, location. Then you have to select if the address is a home address or the company address, to insert 2 telephone numbers, one to call during the day and one to call during the evening, and then select if you are or aren't a registered member on the web. Come on, for the customer, it is an interrogation. We go to the contact page of the Conforama website. The first thing that might leave the customer confused is the order of fields. Usually a contact form asks the customer for the name and the email address, but in this case they ask to select an object and enter a city. We will start with filling out the form. We choose a category and insert a city. After that, we must insert a name and a telephone number. This last one is mandatory as well. Here they ask me if I purchased online or not, the email address, and finally I can write the message. Now I've completed all the fields, the buttons turn red again, and I can click, so I push to send the message. And what happens? The page reloads, the fields are empty, but there is no message that confirms that the form has been sent correctly or not. This is definitely frustrating because I have to settle down and assume that my message has been sent without having any certainty. You always need to provide the customer with a visual confirmation that the message has been sent after completing the form. So, that is what the page of Conforama should look like after the customer has sent the form. As you can see, the customer will not only get the confirmation that the message has been sent, but also how much time he will have to wait to get an answer. In this regard, try to provide detailed information about the subject and avoid to simply say, "We will answer as soon as possible," without qualifying the time it will take. Of course, even if you provide a time indication like EasyJet does, that informs the customer that they will receive an answer within 28 days. It's not a positive impression. It's a bit surreal, actually, don't you think? We have arrived at the end of this lesson, dedicated to the contact between the company and the customer. I would like to recommend you take a look at the bonus lesson about the usability of the forms to understand even better how to structure contact forms. And I hope to see you again in the lesson dedicated to the third way of contact, the user's favourite, the live chat. I will see you there.